Everyone has their favorite fizzy drink. But do you love this drink by giving the Navy for it? Well, the Soviets did. Let's take a closer look at this incredible story that really happened. We are disarming the Soviet Union faster than you, PepsiCo chief Donald Kendall teased President Bush's national security advisor in 1989. Having bought Soviet submarines for a Pepsi, the company took the 6th place in the number of submarines owned in the world, a feat no other private company could boast of. The head of PepsiCo was waiting for this deal to establish the final monopoly of American soda in the Soviet Union. This is not the first barter when PepsiCo and the USSR exchanged goods. From the very beginning, the deal was limited to sweet soda for Soviet vodka. The principle, we for you for us, opened the way for Pepsi to the counters of Soviet stores. For 40 years, the Pepsi-Cola company was able to achieve strong sales in America. But it was time to expand. The choice fell on the Soviet market, and in 1938, the People's Commissariat of Trade of the USSR registered the company's trademark. This was the first attempt by PepsiCo to win a place on the dinner table of the Soviet citizen, but the plans were canceled by the Second World War and immediately after by the Cold War. The second chance fell in the summer of 1959, when the leaders of two ideological blocs, Nikita Khrushchev and Dwight Eisenhower, agreed to hold exhibitions of the USSR and the United States in order to improve relations between the two countries. The Soviet Union was the first to show its scientific and cultural achievements in New York, but the Americans were not particularly impressed with Soviet things. The next exhibition was presented by the United States in the Moscow Sokolniki Park. Soviet citizens got to know American cars, washing machines and dishwashers, Polaroid cameras, art, and fashion. Donald Kendall is considered a truly resourceful and energetic businessman. By the opening of the exhibition, he headed the international activities of PepsiCo, so he was a must-see guest in Sokolniki. American companies actively sponsored the exhibition in Moscow and in return received their stands, including Kendall's. He only had to catch the moment that would glorify the drink in Soviet society. Moreover, the main competitor of Coca-Cola, which surpassed PepsiCo 5 times in sales, did not interfere. The chance came when Nikita Khrushchev and Vice President Richard Nixon walked into the central exhibit, a model of a typical $14,000 home that organizers said could afford a middle-class American working class. Nixon invited the Secretary General to the ordinary American cuisine, stuffed with new devices, but to Khrushchev, it seemed like sheer provocation. Politicians began to argue which system is better, capitalism or socialism, and began to recall the political blunders of the two countries. Khrushchev promised Nixon that in a couple of years, the USSR would not even catch up, but surpass the standard of living in America. The dispute between the two politicians was popularly called the kitchen debate, and a lot of anecdotes were dedicated to them. For 6 years, almost 3 million visitors came to the U.S. presentation in Sokolniki, and on the last day, the American National Exhibition counted 140,000 visitors at once. According to the most conservative estimates, Soviet citizens drank more than 3 million glasses of Western lemonade. In 2009, the son of the General Secretary Sergei Khrushchev said that he and millions of Soviet citizens who visited the exhibition forever remembered the smell of shoe wax that soda exuded. The photographic gamble was not an accident at all, but a planned tactic. The company considered Donald Kendall's decision to go to the Soviet Union and advertise soda a waste of money, so he needed a big catch. The day before the exhibition at the U.S. Embassy, longtime acquaintances Kendall and Nixon agreed that the vice president would invite Khrushchev to the PepsiCo booth. Hoping to prove to his colleagues that the trip was worth it, he asked Nixon to somehow hold the Pepsi in Khrushchev's hand. 6 years after the exhibition, the businessman was promoted to executive director of the concern. He set big plans to expand the brand. Kendall saw the USSR as a territory of opportunity and the embodiment of the main goal, permission to build PepsiCo plants within the Union. This was hampered by the resignation of the chief lobbyist of the soda, Nikita Khrushchev, and the political tensions of the two superpowers. So it was only in November 1972 that the head of PepsiCo arrived in Moscow and signed an agreement to open a workshop in Novorossiysk. Only one thing prevented stable cooperation between PepsiCo and the USSR, the Soviet ruble. For American partners, it did not represent any benefit. It cannot be taken abroad and converted. Then Kendall proposed to Prime Minister Alexei Kosygin to start a commodity barter called liter for liter. "We agreed as follows," Kendall said. "The production and sale of soda in exchange for the distribution of Stolichnaya vodka and champagne in the USA." PepsiCo factories opened in Moscow, Leningrad, Tallinn, Tashkent, Kiev, and were planned in other cities. In 2 years, the plant in Novorossiysk produced 72 million bottles of Pepsi. $1 million were invested in it to launch a high-speed conveyor for bottling. By the end of the 1980s, Russians were drinking about 1 billion servings a year. Stolichnaya in the States also prospered. Annual sales reached $150 to $200 million. She took second place, behind the Swedish Absolut Vodka, while the sale of a carbonated drink brought 303 million rubles to the USSR budget, with a profit of twice as much from the sale of Stolichnaya. PepsiCo's closeness to the Soviet Union caused heartburn among Coca-Cola executives. There was still a war between the two brands, in which Coca-Cola kept score. The company barely knocked out permission from the organizing committee of the Olympics in Moscow to supply its drink. The main thing she wanted was to stay in the country after the Games. But in April 1980, US President Jimmy Carter announced a trade boycott of the USSR due to the introduction of troops into Afghanistan, and the corporation capitulated without introducing its product to the general Soviet public.
That with Soviet invading forces in Afghanistan, neither the American people nor I will support sending an Olympic team to Moscow.
By the early 1990s, the trade agreement was coming to an end. PepsiCo managed to launch 21 plants and planned to rebuild 26 more, but did not receive much benefit. The sale of vodka in the United States reached its peak and did not rise higher, and since the mid-80s, the USSR economy had stalled. Despite this setback, PepsiCo never thought of leaving the Soviet Union, and the company became interested not only in Soviet vodka, but in other ventures. Donald Kendall, who served in the US Navy in World War II, took a closer look at the USSR Navy. In 1989, Mikhail Gorbachev signed a new agreement in which the only thing the Soviet Union could offer in exchange for the production of Pepsi were decommissioned military submarines. Pepsi became the 6th largest owner of the Navy in the world, but did not intend to use it for its intended purpose. The 613 submarines built according to the project were almost 40 years old. Before the sale, they were removed from their weapons and taken away everything of value, so that each submarine cost only $150,000. At that time, scrap metal was expensive, so Kendall and Gorbachev knew the fate of the military flotilla in advance. Soviet oil tankers were more fortunate. They were leased and sold with partners from Norway. But ships and tankers were no match for 1990, when PepsiCo and the USSR struck the deal of the century, a new 10-year, $3 billion barter. The traders of the New York Stock Exchange couldn't believe their eyes when they saw the largest deal of a private American company in the Soviet Union. PepsiCo's shares soared from $1.50 to $66.50. The company also opened 2 Pizza Hut pizzerias in Moscow, bought in 1977. Inside, PepsiCo saw a bright future for their business. Hopes faded with the collapse of the USSR in 1991. If earlier the company dealt with one partner state, now it was several former Soviet republics with their own governments. In short, the assets of the company were scattered across different countries. PepsiCo shortly afterwards began to produce 2-liter plastic bottles, but now the chemical plant, located in Belarus, had most of the bottling plants, built outside the borders of the Russian Federation. The tankers purchased by PepsiCo were stationed in independent Ukraine, which also wanted to receive income from this arrangement. The subsidiary Pizza Hut also faced problems. Its mozzarella cheese was supplied from Latvia, but the independent Latvian government significantly increased prices and agreed to be paid only in dollars. The collapse of the union was not only a headache for PepsiCo employees, but also a personal tragedy for Kendall, who had been building a monopoly in the USSR since 1959, when his company achieved the signing of the only dizzying deal of the century. In just 1 year, to his dismay, hundreds of Western companies, including Coca-Cola, poured into the newly minted Russian market, seeking to take their place in the sun. Despite the advantages of PepsiCo, it had to compete for its position in Russia, newly founded. The only hope was that the Russians would choose a bottle of Pepsi instead of a carbonated novelty. In 1996, a meter-long model of a can of Pepsi and a poster, "Pepsi is your time," were sent to the Mir space station. Until 2013, there were 2 legendary Pepsi billboards on Pushkin Square in Moscow, but even they did not help the company retain its leadership. In just a few years, Coca-Cola overtook Pepsi as the most popular soda in Russia. But the country continues to generate billions of dollars in revenue for PepsiCo through the sale of its soda and subsidiaries. Donald Kendall stepped down as CEO in 1986, after which he remained a trusted advisor and attorney for PepsiCo executives, having served the company for about 39 years. In 2004, Vladimir Putin awarded Kendall the Order of Friendship. On September 20, 2020, Donald Kendall passed away at the age of 99. The Pepsi bottle has become not just another sweet soda, but a cultural phenomenon in the USSR and post-Soviet Russia. Generation Pepsi remembers the first Soviet rock musicians, new performers on MTV, raves of the 90s, and electronic music of the 2000s. In 2019, PepsiCo celebrated 60 years in Russia.